weren't lying when we said Ocarina of Time contained a treasure trove of secrets, so we're visiting Hyrule once again to check out one of the game's more imaginative myths. There are plenty of tricks and glitches that have been discovered in the game, but perhaps one of the earliest and most well-known of these is the Swordless Link glitch. Shortly after the release of the game on the Nintendo 64, a few posts began to pop up on internet message boards from people who were near the end of the game. They claimed to have saved during the final fight with Ganon, and when they started up the game again using that same file, Link could no longer use his sword. Over the years, several more users came forth claiming they had found ways to make Link swordless. But can the hero of time really lose the ability to wield his blade? According to various fan sites, there are apparently 3 methods to make Link swordless, depending on the version of Ocarina of Time you're playing. First, there's the simplest of the 3 methods, saving the game once Ganon knocks the Master Sword out of Link's hands during the final battle. When you resume from your save file, you'll be back inside Ganon's tower, but the B button for your sword will no longer display the sword icon. Secondly, there's our old friend, the crooked cartridge trick, which you might remember from episode 9. This time, you use it to get past Mido in the Kokiri Forest in order to enter the Great Deku Tree early, and then you must beat all 3 dungeons as young Link without ever obtaining the Kokiri Sword. Make sure you learn Epona Song at some point, and then become Adult Link. Go immediately to Lon Lon Ranch and rescue Epona, and once you've returned to Hyrule Field, you need to dismount her. You'll notice the B button is blank once again. Finally, there's a technique laid out called stealing the rod. It requires you to go to Lake Hylia and go fishing at the pond. By using one of 3 different variations of this trick, you can leave the pond with the fishing rod you paid to use. Once back in Lake Hylia, jump into the water, pause the game, and then unpause it. And now your B button should be blank. We're going to try all of this out on every single version of Ocarina of Time, versions 1.0, 1.1, and 1.2 on the N64, the GameCube re-release, the Virtual Console re-release, and finally, the enhanced remake on 3DS. In the end, our patience yielded promising results. Saving after losing the Master Sword resulted in us losing the use of the legendary blade on version 1.0 of Ocarina of Time, but the technique did not work on any other version of the game. However, when we browsed a bit further, we noticed there was actually a variation to this method that worked on the more recent versions. According to this alternate method, we had to get the game to think another item was the Ocarina of Time, using a glitch involving a bottle. First, catch a fish or bug with your bottle, then release it and catch it again, and then finally jump off something nearby or perform a backflip. While in midair, first press the button map to the bottle, and then the button with any one of a set of specific items, like the hook shot or the bow. If you do all of this correctly, when Link lands, he'll try to play the item like the Ocarina of Time. Do this during the final battle with Ganon after he knocks away the Master Sword, and then play the Sun Song after using the Ocarina glitch. Return back to the battle, and this time when you lose your sword, it'll still appear in your inventory. Save and quit, and when you resume, your sword will be missing. This method worked on every version of the game, except for the 3DS version. The crooked cart method proved successful in every N64 version of the game, but it obviously didn't work on the GameCube or Virtual Console rendition since the former is a disc-based version and the latter is digital copy. Also at this time, there's no way to replicate the trick on the 3DS cartridge, so the crooked cart method wasn't available to try out. Finally, we tried the various steal the rod methods. The first iteration of this requires you to simply have to equip the hover boots and then run out onto pond water while casting your fishing rod. If done correctly, you can run about freely and exit the pond. This allowed us to successfully become swordless, but this only worked on version 1.0. The second version of this trick requires you to swim towards shallow water while holding the Z and R buttons at the same time, and then perform a dive. Link's feet will then stick out of the water, and then you have to press B rapidly. If you time it right, Link will be able to move around freely after he casts the rod, allowing you to exit the pond. This trick worked on every version except Ocarina of Time 3D. At this point, we had managed to make Link swordless on every version except for Ocarina of Time 3D, but a cunning fan named Alec Kermit found a trick that led to a third variation of the Steal the Rod glitch. In this version, you have to first have an item equipped that you can use in the pond like the Ocarina of Time, and then you want to equip an unusable item in its place. In this case, it should be a bomb. When you exit out of the menu screen, you have to press the button with the unusable item within the first frame or two, and then you can use that item. Now, if you pull this off, cast the rod, but drop a bomb so it damages you. You're now able to exit the pond and make Link swordless. Thus, it is possible to make Link swordless in every version of Ocarina of Time. Not only is it possible to do this, but as a result of this crazy glitch, a wide variety of glitches are now possible. For example, you can use items while riding Epona, and if you use the Deku Nuts, you'll dismount from Epona. Follow this up by trying to use the hook shot, and then finally use another Deku Nut, and Link will now be able to run around in first-person mode. Some of the cooler tricks involve using the hookshot while on Epona to latch onto something in a few key places in Hyrule, and then if you dismount Epona, Link will levitate and appear to fly. You can even use a series of tricks that will allow Link to get underneath the ice in Zora's Domain, another myth that plagued the Zelda fanbase for years. That's 2 myths for the price of 1. How about that?